Hello everyone, I'm Tovah and thanks for tuning in. Today's yoga class we're going to be moving through a series of forward and back bends that really help to release tension through the spine, your hips, and also stimulate the bladder meridian. So let's get started. So hopping onto your mat, and we're going to start today's practice with a forward fold. If you do have a small cushion, you may like to tuck it underneath your backside, just to give your hips a little bit of a lift and make the tip a little bit easier, but it's definitely not necessary. And this could be a cushion, a blanket, it could even be rolling up the back edge of your mat. So we're going to start in a one-legged long diamond. So stretching your left leg out in a big long diamond shape, and then just having your right leg kind of coming halfway in. So not as tight as if you were sitting cross-legged, but not as far out as the first leg. So somewhere in the middle. As you sit up and let your hips tip forward, drop your chin. As you start to look inward as we begin the practice, in a forward fold. And this is the start of today's practice, so don't feel that you need to go too deeply. Just let your body guide you there. You can close your eyes, start to deepen your breath. And just really finding the right place for you. You could also take a cushion here, resting it underneath your forehead if your forehead is close to the floor, or you can turn a bolster on its end and use that as a resting place for your head if that's more comfortable, or just as a different option that you may enjoy taking today. And as we enjoy some forward and back bends today, you'll notice that that combination of moving forward and then back just feels really natural for the body. When we bend forward, our often instinctive reflex is to want to bend backward after. So today we're really diving into that just kind of inner reflex, giving your body what it really wants to do here. As we just dance with our edge. And remember, any amount of forward fold is perfect here. For you, this may mean sitting up pretty much straight and just dropping your chin. So especially if you're new to yoga or you know that you have a lot of tightness, that you're not very flexible, don't get caught up in feeling like in the forward folds you need to put your face on the floor. That just might not be something that's accessible for you today, and that's completely okay. For each yogi, it's really about finding the right amount of movement for you, and that might be very little movement in some positions. It might mean that your face can come to the floor, but you just find that balance for yourself. Good, and let's slowly come up from here. And you're just going to stretch both legs out and just take a small back bend here just to open up for a breath or two. And then we're going to come into that long one-legged diamond position on the opposite side. So tucking up your left leg a little more, stretching out your right leg a little farther. Try to get nice and high on your sitting bones. So you want your pelvic bowl or your hips to tip forward here as we bow our chin. And then just allow yourself to creep forward, kind of tiptoeing towards your edge. And once you feel like you're getting close, maybe take a step or two back from there. Start a little gentler. And then as time progresses, then allow yourself to decide if there's room for you to go a little bit deeper, as opposed to pushing in really deep right at the very edge at the beginning and then needing to back off as time progresses, because oftentimes as we hold a little bit longer, especially at the beginning, if we jump in really deep, it can be a little bit too much. It's always okay to back off at any point if you get in a little too deep. But as we deepen our practice and understanding of our body, learning to come close to the edge at the start and then get a little closer to the edge as time progresses, that will only help your practice as you better learn those sensations and the feelings in your body and what's enough and when you can handle more, and not being in a rush to go deeper. Good, and let's slowly make our way back up to the top. Stretching your legs out. Just take your time here, maybe take a gentle lean back, open up through the heart. Good, making any movements that you need as we prepare to move into the next posture, which is going to be half hero. So this posture can be a little bit more demanding for people depending on how open you are. But I'm going to give you a few options along the way so that you can make it easier or harder depending on what you need. If you do have some cushions and some blocks or bolsters, I would suggest that you set them up something like this. So where you have a spot for your head, but also you have a bolster or a cushion to go underneath your back. If you have a really long cushion, you should be fine with just one. If you know you're not as flexible, you can also start to make the back more like a ramp. Okay, so it means that you're not going to have to go so low as we move into half hero. So if you're unsure, start with the block and then you can always switch and take it out once you get into the position. So you're going to start by sitting with your bum close to the edge of the cushion. And of course, if you're really flexible, you may not need any cushions at all. Or you might decide to use the cushions because it's still going to give your chest and shoulders a little bit deeper opening than if you were flat on the floor. So we're going to start by tucking our right leg back. Okay, and don't overthink this leg. Just bring it back where it's comfortable. This might be toes down. It might be toes pointing out. Maybe your leg is out a little further than mine is. Okay, so just where naturally kind of feels comfortable for you. And then you're going to stretch the other leg somewhere out straight in front of you. Again, it might be going off to the corner of the mat a little bit. It might be more straight on. Let your hips find its natural placement here. And then from here, you're going to start to lean back. This right here may be as far as you go in half hero. So if this already feels like it's your edge, you stop here. If you feel like venturing further is what your body is asking for, you're going to slide down. Okay, and remember we could have our block underneath just to lift us up a little bit further if you need it. Coming down to the bottom. And then we rest here. Allowing your heart to open in this gentle back bend, but it's a really nice hip opening position, so finding a nice big stretch through the front of the hip. And this is often a muscle that gets really tight in the front of the hip if you do spend a lot of time seated, or if you do a lot of sports or athletic fitness activities. So this can be a really good stretch that maybe you're going to do after a workout or after any time that you've spent an extended period of time sitting. And that might even be if you're visiting family or friends or going on a vacation and you spend a lot of time riding in a car or in a plane. This is a great way to open things up. It's also a great position to focus on your breathing deep into your belly. And while this might be a challenging stretch for you, you want to make sure that you don't feel pain. In particular, if you're feeling pain down in your right kneecap, that's not a sensation that we want to feel. So that would be a reason to let you know that it's probably pulling a little bit too tight. So try sitting back up to the top. Of course, you can come completely out of the posture and move into another posture that you know and like if this is just not feeling good for you today. But sometimes it's just a matter of depth. If we're in a little too far, that can cause some tightness or pulling through the knee, because the knee, of course, is connected to our hip, right, down at the bottom. Good, we're gonna come out of this posture. So you can choose to sit straight up, or often it feels easier just to let yourself roll over to one side. And then you might more easily be able to slide one leg out. Coming up to the top, making any movements that you need. And then we're going to come into this position on the opposite side. So tucking the left leg back this time, stretching out your right leg. And just go slowly into this if you're unsure. If you have a big difference from one side to the other, you may notice that it's easy to get into this position one way, but maybe it's significantly more challenging on the opposite side. So you don't want to go too quick and hurt yourself here. If you have the block or double cushion underneath your back, giving you a little more height, you might also decide that as you rest here for a few breaths, you can go deeper and then you can just take one of the cushions out. Moving a little deeper in the stretch still would be taking the arms somewhere behind your head. Okay, so this could be an option for you if this feels good, or you're looking to open through the chest and shoulders a little bit more. But not letting the intensity get away from you. So only looking for it to feel like about a 7 out of 10. Taking our last few breaths in this nice little back bend as we open our heart. Gently making your way out of this position. Just be ginger, take your time here. As we begin to prepare to take ourselves back forward again. So again, you may want that cushion underneath your backside. And this time we're going to come into that long diamond position with both legs. So both legs are coming into a long diamond. So there should be a significant amount of space between your groin and your feet here. So really stretching it out. If you do know the position bound angle, we would have our legs closer together in bound angle than we do here. So, or our feet closer to our groin than we would in bound angle. So stretch it forward, maybe rocking and rolling a couple of times on your hips, just loosening things up, getting your hips tipping forward. And then when you're ready, letting yourself melt to the front. Dropping your chin, maybe closing your eyes here. Allowing yourself to turn inward a little further. And forward folds are particularly good for stimulating your bladder meridian, which is the biggest meridian in our body. And when we look at Chinese medicine, it's one of the main portals or gateways that can be used for releasing tension throughout the body. So anytime that we can stimulate that meridian, that can just maybe give us some extra relief in various places throughout our body. I kind of like to think of forward folds as a little bit of an acupuncture session for yourself. Deciding to go deeper or gently back away from the stretch at any point here. Wonderful. As you begin to sit up, we are now going to be moving into lying bound angle. So lying back on your mat, feel free to tuck something underneath your head if you like, or go flat to the floor. Here you are going to bring your feet a little closer to your groin, letting your knees drop and open to the sides like a butterfly here. And if this feels fairly intense through the groin area, you can always take cushions or blocks and prop them underneath your thighs or your knees here to add some support. We might rest with our hands on our tummy, just gentle, relaxed, encouraging your belly breath. Maybe you like to stretch your arms out into a T, so getting some chest and shoulder opening here. And if that feels easy for you, you might adopt cactus arms, or bringing your arms somewhere up and over your head. So finding your comfortable resting place here. While we're practicing yoga, one of the things we're practicing is working towards quieting our mind, or practicing and training our brain to get a little more still. And if that's something that you find really challenging, if your mind wants to wander, try to give it some direction. Find one thing that you can think about so you're controlling the conversation. Taking our last few deep breaths here before we transition into our next forward fold. As we start to come out of bound angle, bringing your arms back towards a middle place, bringing your knees to close, helping with your hands if necessary. And then when you're ready, sitting up to the top or coming up to seated any way necessary. As you move forward, we're going to come into pigeon stretch here, bringing your right knee near your right wrist and walking, sliding the back leg as far back as is comfortable. Relax your back toes as you gaze back there. Try to get your leg as straight as you can without forcing. And then let yourself come down to the bottom, just taking a very gentle forward fold here. Bow your chin to release your head and neck, either just letting your head hang heavy, maybe double stacking your fists and resting your head there, choosing one of your props or cushions, or maybe taking your head all the way to the floor. As you breathe into your back, allow your hips to release and relax. And as we take our last few breaths in pigeon, try walking your hands over towards the left corner of your mat. Dropping your head and just sinking into pigeon from here, shifting a little more pressure or weight towards your right buttock. Good. And coming back to the center. As we slowly come out of pigeon stretch, any way that feels comfortable for you, maybe coming to downward dog, to resting child's pose. Loads of options here. Moving any way that feels right as we prepare to come into pigeon on the opposite side. As you're ready, bringing your left knee near your left wrist. Again, splitting the legs as much as possible. Of course, you could always choose an alternate version of pigeon, like the back lying figure 4 or 90-90 hip stretch, if this version of pigeon is not accessible to you. As we rest here, opening our hips, trying to keep our mind at bay, and allowing our body to release. And maybe venturing, bringing the hands a little bit over towards the right side of your mat as you drop your head. Slightly changing the angle of the stretch here. Just working into a little bit different of a place. Perfect, and slowly coming back to the center. As we come on back out of pigeon, again, any way that's comfortable, coming through downward facing dog, or just having a seat over on your cheek and making your way back onto the middle of your mat. As we move into our last back bend of today's practice, supported bridge pose. So using a block, or you could also use a firm cushion here. And if supporting bridge pose is not a position that feels good for you, I'll have you go back into lying down angle and spend a little bit more time there. As we lift our hips, tucking our cushion or our block at any height underneath our lower back. Really aiming for it to be not in the bendy part of your lower back, but at your firm upper buttocks. So kind of just below where your waistband would be for most people. And if it feels uncomfortable, try shift it a little closer towards your feet. Maybe it is in that bendy part of your lower back, so we don't want it there. Allow your knees to go in any direction, maybe even straightening your legs here if that feels right. Allow the block or the cushion to hold you as you allow yourself to melt over it. As we find this back bend, not only releasing tension through the lower back, but opening the front of the hips. bridge pose here. As you press into your feet, lift your hips a little higher, sliding the block or the cushion out and away from your body. And then as we come into our final resting place for today's class, moving into waterfall pose. If you have a softer cushion, you may want to use it here, but definitely your block will work. Or no cushion at all is completely fine, but the cushion just helps to tip your hips back a little bit, so it'll make it more comfortable and restful for you to relax with your legs up. Let your knees bend just a little bit comfortably here. Let your arms relax. Close your eyes here as you allow your body to move a little deeper towards relaxation. And waterfall pose is just an excellent pose for detoxifying the body, for stress relief, and for immune boosting. It's a great way to end your practice. It's also a great posture to add into your home yoga routine. Maybe this is something that you're going to add in that you do every day, whether it's during your yoga practice or maybe you carve out a little more time somewhere else in your day to fit this posture in. Not feeling rushed in any way here. Allow your body to rest and release in waterfall pose as long as you like. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the forward and backward bending class. If you do have any questions or any comments, please feel free to put them down below. As well, give me that thumbs up and subscribe if you did like the class. Until next time, namaste.